On 5 News, prison protest. Up to 10,000 guards stop work, saying jails are in meltdown. The government says their action is illegal and wins a High Court injunction to force them back.
The union's position is unnecessary and unlawful, and it will make the situation in our prisons more dangerous.
But officers say they'll defy the government and their protests will continue. Also, the cost of living, a surprise fall in inflation, but the Bank of England governor warns of sharp rises ahead. The next phase of the high-speed rail route is announced, sparking anger on this brand new housing estate that could now be knocked down.
When we chose to move here, we planned to live here for 10 years. At least until our son went to secondary school. We've just picked out a primary school for him, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yesterday, a wizard entered New York with a case. A case full of magical creatures.
And the magic is back. We speak to Eddie Redmayne and director David Yates about the new Harry Potter spin-off.
How do you prepare? You sort of sit in a room going, sort of flexing, I know, I was warming up. You try and just take it step by step.
Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. The crisis surrounding England's jails boiled over today as thousands of prison officers stopped working in a dispute over their safety. Prisoners were kept locked in their cells and scores of criminal trials were disrupted because of a lack of staff. The protest centres around what the officers describe as a surge in violence and follows incidents including a riot, an alleged murder and the escape of 2 inmates. This afternoon, High Court judges ordered the officers back to work, but they're refusing. Simon Weigar has the story.
A day on the outside for the people usually on the inside. These prison officers at Pentonville in North London are just some of the thousands taking part in a walkout. And this is why. They say the recent riot at Bedford Jail and breakouts at other prisons are down to understaffing. Attacks on prison officers have risen from 4,000 last year to almost 6,000 this year.
I feel more vulnerable walking the landings of British prisons than I did walking the streets of Northern Ireland.
Dave Todd was a soldier before he became a prison officer. He says the situation is critical.
We're not keeping a lid on it. Social media was rife with prisoners rioting in Bedford. They took control of a wing. They smashed the wing up, you know. We are not in control. If prisoners want to take control of the wing, be in no doubt they can take control of the wing.
It is illegal for prison officers to strike, so this action was not announced beforehand. While prisons up and down England and Wales are in lockdown, the courts are in chaos for the simple fact that there's no one to transport the prisoners to the courtrooms. The highest profile case to be postponed was the trial of the alleged murderer of Joe Cox. The MP's parents and sister arrived at the Old Bailey only to be told there could be no hearing because the defendant was still locked in his cell. The government blames the prison officers for letting talks collapse.
These talks were due to continue this morning. Instead, the POA failed to respond to our proposals and called this unlawful action without giving any notice.
Although there is a new recruitment drive, the union says it's way too slow. They need more officers on the inside now, and that's why they were forced to make a stand outside.
Well, Simon's with me now. Simon, if it's illegal, they've been told they can't do it and they still are protesting, what happens now?
Well, I'm told from the Prison Officers Association that they will go back at midnight, so that night shift will go in. The injunction doesn't make that much difference because they were breaking the law anyway. Their view is that the government, as the employer, is breaking the law, all sorts of health and safety laws. They say in the last few weeks, 30 members have been assaulted. There is a big recruitment drive, 2,500 new officers, but they say it's just too slow. And as for all the wasted time and money today in the courts, they've apologised for that, and they specifically apologise to Joe Cox's family, who were expecting the first day of evidence in that trial.
Simon, thank you. The cost of living rose by less than expected last month. The rate of inflation fell from 1% to 0.9%, largely because of lower food prices. However, the good news seems to end there. Manufacturers saw their costs go up dramatically, and many, including the Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, say eventually that will push up the prices in the shops. Layla Hayes reports.
On the high street, there are still bargains to be had, but for how much longer? The fall in the pound post-Brexit means import prices are rising and many businesses are feeling the pinch. At this London pub, the food and drink they import is now more expensive, but they're reluctant to put up prices.
To cover all these extra costs, it's going to mean 25 to 30p on a pint of beer. Well, there's no way that we can pass that on to our customers. And to be honest, nor would we want to. So we're going to have, as a company, to take that on the chin.
Inflation may be lower than expected, but that could soon change. On the one hand, the price of food is falling, while clothing prices are going up much more slowly than they were last year. But fuel costs are rising more quickly, and manufacturers are being hit. The cost of the materials they buy are soaring. So far, many retailers have been absorbing the higher costs, worried that if they put up prices, they could lose customers. But that situation isn't likely to last forever. Today, the Governor of the Bank of England gave this warning.
As an individual, I wouldn't take a steer from the October numbers to say that was all just noise. No, unfortunately, inflation is going to go up. That's the consequence of a very large move in the exchange rate.
So are we feeling the effect on the high street?
The salary is not increasing and the price and the cost of living is still going up and we're still expected to survive.
Because of the Brexit, it's going to worse and worse and worse.
I mean, I don't think you're going to really feel a change, any sort of impact until after Christmas, beginning of the new year.
The Brexit effect on prices may not be here yet, but experts warn it will be eventually. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
The besieged Syrian city of Aleppo has been bombarded by airstrikes for the first time in nearly a month. Footage said to have been filmed today show residents in the rubble of their bombed-out street. They had reportedly been sent texts at the weekend giving them 24 hours warning to leave. However, Moscow has denied that Russian or Syrian planes were involved in the latest airstrikes. It's the costly, controversial, but some say vital project designed to boost the economy across the country. Today, the route for the northern stage of the High-Speed 2 rail line was unveiled, and it caused anger among those whose homes and neighbourhoods are in its path. The Transport Secretary said he felt desperately sorry for them. Well, Peter Lane has been meeting the residents in the town of Mexborough.
Houses that are still going up might soon have to come down. The cement and paintwork on this new estate in South Yorkshire is barely dry, but plans outlined today for HS2 mean these brand new homes could be demolished. When Rachel and her young family moved on to the development in Mexborough, the high-speed line was coming nowhere near them. But a change to the government's preferred option now has the map showing HS2 right on top of them.
We plan to live here for 10 years, at least until our son went to secondary school. We've just picked out a primary school for him, and it's just heartbreaking that that might all be taken away, that we might have to move from here.
The High-Speed 2 network will transform rail travel in Great Britain.
This original promo shows the South Yorkshire section of line running via Meadowhall on the outskirts of Sheffield, but now the plan is to shift it further east. It's one of a number of tweaks put forward today for consultation. Critics say the whole route should have been finalised long ago and question if the project can come in on schedule and budget. Today, the Transport Secretary said even people who never use HS2 will benefit.
High-quality transport allows businesses to grow, work together and access a wide range of customers, suppliers and skilled labour markets. By improving connections between our great cities, HS2 will generate jobs, skills and economic growth and help us build an economy that works for all.
Residents on the estate back in Mexborough, like Katie, have the government's sympathy and will get compensation. But right now that doesn't help with what's coming.
It will come all the way over our heads here, over the canal, as you can see, straight over, sort of adjacent to that bridge.
So we'd be underneath it now?
Absolutely. But these are people's lives and these are people's homes. Beautiful, beautiful landscapes. So for the dog and the cat and the kids, it's just really, really lovely, and that's why we bought this, and we don't want to move at all.
If HS2 does come through here, the trains are due to be running on this spot by 2033. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Coming up on 5 News. The scandal of mental health care and the lack of help for the most vulnerable of young adults. The leaked memo that claims the government has no clear plan for Brexit, and
but there's absolutely nothing to worry about.
We speak to Eddie Redmayne about Harry Potter, James Bond and Donald Trump. We'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. Too many young people with serious mental illness in England are being denied the help they need. That's according to a worrying report which found that a quarter of children who were referred for specialist treatment are being turned away. Campaigners claim it's because of a lack of funding. Our health correspondent Catherine Jones has been speaking to one teenager whose pleas for help were ignored.
I just hated my life so much, and I would try and kill myself like every week or sometimes more than that.
When she was 14, Nikki reached crisis point. Her GP had referred her for specialist help 6 months earlier, but she'd been turned away, told, "You're not ill enough."
They said that my self-harm and my suicide attempts were superficial. So I took by that, I need to try harder. I'm not trying hard enough to kill myself because I don't deserve help yet.
Sadly, it seems Nikki's experience is not unusual. A report has found 2/3 of young adults got no psychological or medical help after attempting suicide, and a quarter of children referred for specialist treatment are turned away, while £250 million of extra investment the government pledged is not reaching the front line.
The money is going to prop up other parts of the NHS. We know that acute hospitals are under impossible pressure. So the temptation for local leaders is to take a bit of the money allocated for children's mental health and to use it to prop up acute hospitals.
NHS England says overall spending on mental health has risen, but it admits some areas of the country aren't investing as much as others. Nikki says the quicker that mental and physical illness are treated the same everywhere, the better.
You wouldn't go to a doctor with cancer and they say, well, come back when it's worse. That would never happen because that's seen as unacceptable, but no one sees it as unacceptable when that's a mental health issue as well.
Everyone agrees the services that treat young people like Nikki need more investment, but that means everyone across government and the NHS must make sure what has been pledged is delivered.
Catherine Jones speaking to one young woman about her struggle to get help for mental health problems. The Prime Minister has dismissed a leaked memo that suggests plans for Brexit are in chaos. The document, said to be drawn up by consultants, claims there's no overall strategy, that senior ministers are divided over the plans, and that Whitehall needs 30,000 extra staff to deal with all the work. The government says it doesn't recognise those claims. Here's our chief correspondent, Tessa Chapman.
Mr Davis, what's your response to the Brexit memo?
Leaving number 10 this morning, members of Theresa May's cabinet. No doubt they discussed Brexit around the table, but what about the leaked report?
Mr Johnson, what do you make of the Brexit memo?
It describes a divided cabinet, an overwhelmed Whitehall and no plan. The Foreign Secretary was giving nothing away. The memo, prepared by the consultancy firm Deloitte, was leaked to The Times. It says government departments have been working on Brexit, resulting in well over 500 projects. It claims expectations of increased headcount are in the 10 to 30,000 range. But the author says there is no prioritisation when it comes to projects and no common strategy has emerged.
We don't know where they're going, where they're heading, what they want, what their objectives are. Until you get that clear, you don't know what resources you'll actually need. What angers me, actually, they were in government when the referendum took place. Why wasn't there these preparations made?
There was fury from Theresa May's spokesperson, who insisted the report was not commissioned and that the consultant has never been in number 10. Ian Duncan-Smith even accused those behind it of political motivation.
It's all part of that process of trying to shock and scare people into believing somehow there's chaos and confusion. None of that is true, and the government needs to get on with its business and ignore these siren voices by those who never accepted the result of the referendum.
But is there truth in claims of a staff shortage?
You could deliver Brexit with the current number of people that you have, but
it's not feasible for them to be doing two things at once. They can't be delivering your reform programme and shrinking the civil service and stepping up to deliver Brexit.
The government doesn't recognise the memo's authority, but many do recognise and criticise the apparent lack of strategy and resources. Theresa May still has much to prove.
Let's talk to Tessa now. She's in Westminster for us. Tessa, how damaging is all this?
Well, it stokes the fire again, doesn't it? It gives critics the opportunity to say that Brexit is a shambles, that 5 months on from the referendum, there is still no clear vision. We have actually, in the last hour, heard from Deloitte, the firm behind the memo. They acknowledge that it wasn't meant for wider publication and that the author has never set foot in Downing Street. So you can see why Theresa May's team are annoyed by this, but they say they just want to get on with the work. That said, the memo does raise legitimate questions about the capacity of the civil service, about strategy and about division, and those questions do need to be answered.
Tessa, thank you. Police are investigating the death of a 14-year-old schoolboy who fell ill while in detention. It's reported Nasser Ahmed was severely asthmatic and was being kept in an exclusion group under a teacher's supervision at Bow School in East London. He was taken to hospital after developing breathing problems, but he couldn't be saved. A 17-year-old boy has admitted hacking charges linked to last year's TalkTalk data breach. More than 150,000 customers had personal information accessed, with 15,000 having their bank account details taken. The teenager told magistrates he knew it was illegal but hadn't thought of the consequences. And authorities in Japan, who had to deal with a massive sinkhole in the middle of a busy road, have repaired it just a week after it opened up. The giant hole appeared in central Fukuoka City while construction work was taking place on a subway. Today, traffic has been allowed to use the intersection again, although it was a day later than planned because of the bad weather. Finally, fans who've been missing the magic of Harry Potter are going to get a treat this week. A spin-off called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, based on the book by J.K. Rowling, is being released. It takes place decades before Harry was born and will be the first in a series of 5 films. But can it cast the same spell? Minnie Stevenson's been finding out.
Yesterday, a wizard entered New York with a case.
Picture the scene: inside the suitcase, a world of magical animals about to be let loose in 1920s New York City. Cue absolute chaos and Eddie Redmayne playing a wizard trying desperately to contain them. Welcome to the world of Fantastic Beasts, the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter spin-off. And today, back in Muggleland, I met Oscar winner Redmayne with the film and 4 times Potter director David Yates.
I wanted to ask you, how do you go from being a grown-up to talking to CGI beasts?
We had a couple of months of working with puppeteers and then sometimes with actors and then talking to the visual effects department and we sort of ended up, each creature would have a different representation.
In your darkest moments, were you talking to yourself?
Always. Yes.
The movie is set some 50 years before Harry Potter is born, and it's the first of 5 films planned by the Warner Brothers empire. But seeing as it follows one of the most successful film series of all time, are those big wizard shoes to fill. Do you feel that pressure when you're kind of entering the Harry Potter world, that you have to do it justice, or do you just separate the two because it's too much?
Genuinely managed to sort of create a vacuum in which we felt free to try and to fail, and it's only since we've started talking to journalists keep going, how's that pressure feeling, that I start sweating a lot. But
yeah, I'm glad we've done that.
Thank you so much, so kind.
Do you know, my observation is they brought a lot of love, these guys.
While some US film critics have called Fantastic Beasts perfect escapism from last week's American election, I wanted to know, obviously it's set in New York City, what do you think the world of Fantastic Beasts would make of a Trump presidency? Would it be chaos? Would they be calm? How would they react?
The beasts would probably be deported, I'm sure.
That's probably
frankly.
true.
But there's absolutely nothing to worry about.
Given that the Harry Potter franchise is worth more than the James Bond films, it would be rude not to ask Redmayne, do you ever fancy James Bond? Is that something we can ever see you doing? There's lots of talk about it.
I would be a useless James Bond.
Really?
Yeah.
No?
I mean, I love going to see James Bond films, and I definitely don't want to see myself playing it. Like, I would hate that.
And finally, never mind Hogwarts. I had to ask Redmayne if he felt he'd now graduated from the school of how to be famous.
How do you prepare? You sort of sit in a room going, sort of flexing, I don't know, I was warming up. You try and just take it step by step.
The film is out this Friday when a world of very scary beasts will be set free in cinemas. And I'm not talking about the critics. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Now, before we go, Matt's joined us to tell us what's coming up on 5 News tonight. Hello, Matt.
Hi, Sean. We're going to be taking a closer look later on at a big racism row in America. A woman made a highly offensive comment about Michelle Obama. I can't even repeat it here, it's so offensive, and it was liked by her town's mayor. So we're asking if Donald Trump's America now encourages this kind of racism. Also, should you share pictures of your kids on social media? A new survey says 70% of us think parents share too much. We'll hear from the mother of these kids, who says it's a positive thing, as well as another mum who thinks very differently indeed. Plenty more of those pictures to come at 6:30, Sean.
Thanks very much, Matt. Look forward to it. That's it for now, though. Claire Nazir has got the weather for you next. I will see you again tomorrow at 5. Matt is back at 6:30. Thanks for watching tonight. Goodbye for now.